So welcome, gentlemen. We are here to discuss the ever-evolving world of fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG, and explore the different strategies that these gentlemen are utilizing in both traditional settings and emerging technologies, emerging e-commerce. So, sorry, I got distracted. What would be some of the trends that you were noticing in terms of how habits have changed, how monthly groceries, etc., are changing, like in terms of amounts spent in monthly groceries? Any trends that you're noticing in the FMCG world? Feel free to.
So I think to start off, I think the most important thing what we've seen with data is that people are still spending on groceries. It's a need, right? I mean, we eat 3 times a day, 90 times in a month. We still need to do groceries. However, a lot of shift has been happening between brands. So there's a tier A brand, tier B brand, tier C brand. With inflation and the current economic situation, the macro conditions, we're now seeing people shifting from a tier A brand to a tier B brand, or vice versa, right? Not vice versa, but tier B to C, and etc. Or let's say in the context of beverages, we see people who were buying a 2.25 liter, let's say Pepsi, are now buying a 1.5 and etc. So we've been seeing this trend for the last couple of months, or at least this entire year, and that has helped us to bring in more and more assortment on the platform. Let's take oil as an example, bringing cheaper brands which are, have the same consumption for the customer, but importantly, much cheaper in price.
Okay, so they're still buying the product, they're just buying less of it in smaller quantities.
Or cheaper brands.
Or cheaper brands, right. So for example, someone who was perhaps used to buying a very special type brand of tea is perhaps now buying a more affordable one, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And with tea, because we're a nation which drinks a lot of chai and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's why I
there,
use
I
chai
think
as
brand loyalty is still there, but yes, we see the shift as well.
Okay.
But in beverages, in snacks, in oil, Pampers, milk formula, milk in general, we've seen the trend that I was just mentioning earlier.
Okay. Anyone else would like to comment? Who else is in the food industry?
Oh, well, I won't be able to give a food-specific one. That would be Muntaqa
No, because I had mentioned the grocery.
But I think what we're seeing for the last 3 to 4 years, ever since inflation's been clocking in excess of 20%, is that the country and its demographics in terms of the economic buying power, you're seeing a divergence. You're seeing a two-speed economy. You're seeing people who are indeed downgrading and downtrading, as Kassim also mentioned, but then the affluent part of the country is equally still consuming practically as they were. If you talk about the middle class, which is hit the most, what you're seeing over there is that if previously they were spending 30% of their income on discretionary items, things that they could buy impulsively, they've cut that back from 30% to less than 13%. So it's almost a 60% drop. And they are indeed focusing on paying the bills, getting their groceries in, and therefore that percentage has shot up. So paying the bills and utilities and buying groceries is now almost 66% of a household's spend versus almost 50% 3 years ago.
Okay. And in terms of other trends like the moving to the digital, what trends have you observed there with fast-moving consumer goods?
So I can address both food and groceries because we do both on our platform. So trial generation is something that's now becoming a little bit more difficult because people are looking at deals and discounts for trial generation. So if you want to add more people into the digital universe, the spend over there to entice people, that's becoming a lot more difficult from what it used to be. For example, within the COVID years or pre-hyperinflation that has hit Pakistan. So that's one area that I think all of us probably are feeling across the board. And we're trying to figure out ways where we can sort of give that value back to the consumer. So one of the things that we see from a trend perspective on our platform on the grocery side is bundling of items is working well because it gives a perception of, economic savings, which on the flip side is also slightly more difficult because they have to pay up a lot more at that point in time, which is not something because of challenges in terms of their disposable income, which is going down. So it becomes a little bit more difficult. So it's a decision point at that. While on the one side we see people moving away from monthly groceries to fortnightly to weekly to sometimes daily top-ups. On the other side, we're seeing people moving more towards bundles and the perception of value. So it's a balance that we need to figure out to scale up a lot more.
Okay. Dr. Jawaid, you are at the Ghazali University. Universities, for example, that have graduates that are looking forward to entering the job market into FMCG companies. How has the training, not the courses, I would say, how have the courses changed to adapt to this new digital world that we live in?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think courses have changed, and but let me get back to maybe the issue which was being discussed, and then maybe get to this issue. I think what we're talking about is I've spent a lot of years in market research, started Gallup research and so on. So over the years, the importance of numbers, the importance of being able to be specific. Let's say, for example, we're talking about substitution of one brand to another brand. Who will substitute? And I think some basic numbers about the country, because so many times I talk to marketing people, and just within the marketing team, there's differences of opinion about just even the basic numbers. And so what I'd like to do is maybe right now or later on, maybe share some numbers in terms of just the basic numbers. I mean, for example, when we talk about Pakistan, we think about 200 million, 220 million, something like this. But the issue is that should we think about the individual as a unit, or should we think about the household, for example? So if we think about the household as in many decisions, in many situations, making the decision, as opposed to the individual. So, a child will not make the diaper decision. The decision will be like a family, and so on. But some of the basic numbers. We are talking about on the order of 40 million households in Pakistan. And it would be useful just as people, we're talking about 40 million. If I can just show a slide, it might make it easier, and then just for 1 minute. Could you put up a slide, the first slide? And then we can think about a number, for example, about 14 of those million are in the urban markets. So we look up this, and I'll just take about half of it, not give a lecture, but just these very basic numbers. How many of these 14 million are living in Karachi? So, for example, KE has about 2 million residential units, subscribers. So we are talking about at least 2 million, maybe 2.5 million households in Karachi, just from that one number. How many of those are my customers? The remaining 12 million, where are they? So when we think about urban Pakistan, we typically think about major cities, but there are about 500 towns. Urban Pakistan has 500 towns. So, and then we think about income segments and so on. So, and there are different income segments. I mean, this is 2020 data, which is roughly, that's when a dollar was about 150 rupees, and now it's probably double that. So there are about 1 million households out of those 14 million, which earn about over 100,000 rupees, okay? And that particular 1 million households is responsible for maybe 25% of the total money being spent in urban Pakistan. And I'll just finish this, whatever, that the total amount, if you look at the GDP, it's about 7 trillion rupees, which urban Pakistan is spending. Okay, this is their time, this is 2020, so that'll be about $100 billion, $100 billion US dollars. So why is this important? What I want to think about is that this is sort of the amount of money which urban Pakistan is spending, $100 billion, 7 trillion rupees. And what are the segments of this? And which segment am I targeting? And when we talk about shocks such as inflation, which segment is reacting how? So, I mean, it's one thing to talk generally, but it's one thing to talk a little bit more specifically. So let me just end on this issue, and we can talk more about these numbers. But the specific thing in terms of, you asked me that how is curriculum changing? I think it's a matter of students becoming aware of just what marketing in Pakistan is, or any kind where. To be able to work with data, relevant data, to the markets that they're working on. And so I think the need of the hour, I think, in universities is both to know the the technology to work with data, and then to identify relevant data, which is relevant. So let me just say that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing the numbers with us as well. Yes, sadly, we only have 18 minutes left. I want to ask you, gentlemen, which has been more transformational, inflation or digital on board?
That's a tough one. But inflation has been a constant. I think
constant?
Yeah. Inflation has been a constant since 2018.
2018?
Yeah, but I think there are three crucible moments that I see where digital took a leap. First and foremost, of course, everyone talks about it, COVID. That's where the behaviors really changed. They were forced to change. The second, I think in Pakistan specifically, where you had over the last 3 years, over $500 million flow into different startups. I think that triggered a lot of change. You got a lot of B2B players, you got a lot of B2C, fintech, a lot of companies trying to solve real problems. I think that was a time, unfortunately, that kind of got a reality check. And the third one I find now, which is brewing slowly, is the silent revolution which the state bank is trying to embark us upon, which is the entire Rast journey. And you find that across the border with UPI and Aadhaar in India, where I think the payments have been linked to your retina scan, and everyone has a unique identification, and more importantly, they're linking that up with commerce. So I think that, for me, if the regulators and our private sector can really work on building that, I feel those would be the three areas which will really help us drive some of the transformation which has been elusive so far.
That is happening? Retinal commerce?
That's happening in India. In Pakistan, you have Rast, which is the instantaneous, transfer of money peer-to-peer. That is not happening in Pakistan, but ours is biometrically enabled. It's not retinal scanned. Yeah, so those are the things I feel are happening as we speak.
So I think similar to Fawad, we have both elements that impacting us as an online player. So from a digital perspective, groceries, if I specifically talk about, it's still in a very nascent stage. Food, for example, has been here, online food ordering more than 10 years in Pakistan. So it's still a bit more developed. The category is not as developed as we would hope, but the pace is coming in. COVID obviously helped leapfrog. Similarly, groceries is just 2 to 2.5 years old in Pakistan, online groceries. So from that perspective, digital onboarding is slowly picking up. However, we do see a positive trend on a month-on-month basis. So if we look at our numbers only, so we see more people coming in, adopting online groceries, and there's a reason, which is inflation, because people can easily compare 2 platforms. They can compare 5 websites. So it's a very easy comparison of pricing. So deals and discounts is a constant voice of customer that we see. We want more deals and discounts. All our surveys are pointed towards that. Every time there is a campaign going on, the uptick of that campaign is more. Every second campaign is bigger than the first one. So that's clearly indicating that there is a big inflationary impact on people's pockets. So the jump is huge. Now the question for us as online players, as Krave, Mart and foodpanda, is how to sustain that. When you don't have those deals going on, when you don't have those campaigns going on, we need to ensure there's a sustainable growth that happens. And that's what we're focusing on trying to crack.
Thank you.
I think just one more thing to add, what Fawad and Muntaqa said was the decision maker in the house is also changing. So as time goes by, we're now the decision makers in the house. Now we're the ones doing our groceries, food, and etc. Compared to maybe 5-7 years ago or 10 years ago, where our parents were actually going to a local store to actually do shopping. And with us, people mostly sitting in this room or here. Convenience is important, which is why people are now shifting to, the new fintechs that have emerged, digital payments, online groceries, food, shopping, through the RAS or wherever. These things have been, the real reason. I think the decision maker has completely changed.
I thought you were going to add something. Actually, Fawad, I have a question for you. How is Unilever catering to the different income segments? Do you have a strategy?
We do, and I think alluding to what Dr. Saab said without getting into his charts, is, the reality of Pakistan is that 65% of the country resides in rural Pakistan. If there are 50,000 villages in Pakistan, 80% of your economic activity happens in 7,000 of those villages. These are very economically rich villages that we're talking about. And so as a consumer good organization, we've got to be where the money is and where the consumers are. Clearly, as part of our strategy, while the Karachi, Lahores, and Islamabads of the world are critical, strategic priorities, but equally catering to the masses is something that we try to do as well. And so going to your question on segments, we have to straddle the pyramid, because in isolation and in absolute numbers, in Pakistan, you've got a pretty large affluent segment, which could be triple the size that of, Dubai. Yeah. And you've got a mass rural / semi-served market as well that you've got to stretch your brands, stretch your distribution to reach as well. So in terms of our strategic priorities, I would call out, say, while we work with a lot of supermarkets, wholesalers, FMCG, e-commerce, grocery, etc., equally our focus on rural and on serving the small stores across the country, and there are around 700,000 of them, is a critical strategy that we continue to play on, because those are the stores which then help us reach to the 40 million households that Dr. Saab mentioned are critical, because they do consume a lot. And if they can get the right value for money, maybe it's a sachet, maybe it's a low-tier brand offering quality product, I think that works for a company like us.
Yes, go ahead, Doctor.
I think what Fawad just said is very interesting. Because over the last almost 40 years, I've been looking at profiles of different areas of the country and so on. And it's interesting that in many ways, there's a lot of equalization in a sense. There's a lot of, for example, the penetration of mobiles, the penetration initially of television. But for example, right now, the profile of rural Pakistan is gradually becoming like the profile of semi-urban Pakistan. It's not that stark a difference. I'll just give one number, for example. Having a motorcycle, having a fridge, having a washing machine. The presence of a washing machine in a house is a major event for housewives. It makes a big difference. Having a fridge in the house is a major difference. Having a motorbike gives a lot of flexibility. You can suddenly start doing monthly purchases. And you see that the difference in terms of percentage of people, families, having these, let's say, three things. The difference between rural Pakistan and urban Pakistan is very quickly sort of, becoming closer. And I think these are numbers to be looked at, and to also look how other countries, other societies, when they've sort of, when consumer behavior changes, what are the indicators of that? So I think there's just a lot happening in terms of very rapid changes. The spread of internet in pretty much all of Pakistan is massive.
So with all these, do you have something to add? Go ahead.
Just adding on that, and to your question specifically, in terms of one of the categories that we operate in really well is hair care, shampoos. In Pakistan, Unilever is selling 5 brands because they're targeting different segments. So you've got really premium Tresemme, Dove, Sunsilk, Clear, Lifebuoy shampoo, and so on. And you've got a few brands which we've brought in specifically for digital commerce. So that's the kind of effort that one has to put in to sell to your fellow Pakistanis, because each one has a specific need that you've got to tap into.
And with all these new trends, these changes, has the supply chain changed as well?
Yes and no. I think traditionally our supply chain is dependent on very few players, few industry connects. I think in recent times, in the last mile, we've seen a lot of good effort. I think foodpanda has created that revolution with 50,000 of their riders, and a lot of other logistics players have pivoted into selling or facilitating the last mile. But I would say in terms of structural logistics, I think it's pretty much old age still. And I think there are a couple of startups trying to crack that model. I don't think they've been successful yet. Having said that, we did see some signs of retail supply chain changing with a lot of B2B players, which is the interesting session, which I think there's another panel happening on that later on. But that too, I feel, is kind of hitting a plateau. So you've got to constantly innovate there to unlock a lot of the supply chain. You're right, because we're still dependent on either we're an import-driven economy, and so therefore everything has to be done in mass scale. We're not yet at a stage where we have nano factories or collaborative manufacturing, although that is what we'd want to get to, so that we can serve smaller areas and do it in a very cost-effective way. That is still an issue, but I think things are changing. With the import restrictions, I think companies are forced to rethink their strategies, and I think some, if not a lot, changes are happening as we speak.
Pardon my ignorance, but Unilever produces in Pakistan?
Yes, so 97% of our product is produced in Pakistan across 5 factories.
Okay. So perhaps the supply chain question is more apparent to you.
So again, the two elements to it. One is, so money goes where there's money, right? I mean, money attracts money. So if companies like us that are more digital, we scale more, automatically all the things that Fawad was saying, there'll be investment coming into those. So we see investments on the B2B side. There's a lot of companies trying to digitize that. We, on our side, are trying to scale up as much as possible. So if we're doing, multi-billion business every month on the grocery side. So if we scale that up a lot more, and we can keep on, and if we keep on continuing on that trend, that helps digitize a lot of the suppliers, a lot of the distributors that we work with. So like our partners here, for example, right? I mean, we are a tech-first company. So a lot of the things that we wanted to do, traditionally, companies like Unilever never had to do that because their distributors never really asked for it. They were very manual. So we've had great partners where they have also sort of adopted technology. So when they start adopting technology at the start, which is the production and the initial supply order taking side, and then we bring in technology at the last mile, then the middle mile eventually will pick up, and is a bit of a lag, but it will eventually get there. And then on the other side, for us, for example, for us, supply chain is an area where we can really use AI in a lot more deeper sense. And this is not AI just because it's a buzzword. It's actual beyond just analytics. So we're using tools that help us predict what's going to sell well in the next month, how much inventory we need, which then helps us give the right orders to our suppliers, which then helps them produce the right in their factories.
Good for forecasting.
So it's forecasting, but not forecasting based on history, but forecasting based on what the input is, what the future campaigns are going to look like, what discounts we're going to have, how the economy is moving. So a lot of factors into it. So this become a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more focused, as opposed to before, which was more a gut sort of a reaction.
Yes, artificial intelligence. It's difficult because there's a skills gap there. Doctor, is there AI programs at university? But
I think
more
the
than what the basic teaches
I think
us.
the issue is that we have a tech. Generally in universities we have sort of a computer science engineering track, and we have a business school type track, and others and so on, social sciences and so on. And at LUMS, for example, the issue is that the technical track, of course, invariably has AI or whatever the latest techniques are. The issue is more as to the people who are in social sciences. somebody in medicine, somebody in marketing, somebody in, how much technology do they want to know? I think that's the more sort of complicated question. And but the good thing I'm finding is that people who are younger, basically who are just getting into college, let's say 18-year-olds, they are much more versatile, willing to learn Python. I mean, so maybe a couple of years ago, thinking about teaching Python or, pretty sort of programming language to a business school student would be but right now we are doing it. And the MBAs are more difficult. I mean, it's more difficult to teach maybe MBAs Python, and maybe they just don't feel the need. But so I guess what the issue is that technology is there. The issue is that how quickly in different disciplines we'll be introducing technology. And I think right now in the Governor House, there's this AI program which you're sort of involved with, and we're taking them all the way to generative AI. And these are like kids. These are like 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids. Teaching them a whole bunch of skills.
Exactly. So Gen AI, for instance, I feel that this technology is moving much faster than than we are, right? All right. Krave Mart, I have a question. Because apparently you've been claiming that you are set to reach profitability. What metrics makes you say that? Have you cracked the code?
I think the number one thing what we've learned over time is with this business, the dark store business, costs need to be really under control, right? And definitely the biggest cost here is operations, which is your dark store cost, which is your logistics cost, your middle mile cost, and warehousing. So for us, if you go and see our dark stores, these are actual dark stores. They're not in the front streets. They're in the basements. They're on the first floor, where our average rent is like 50, 60,000 rupees, which is very, very cheap compared to, if you go on the front side, you just add another zero, right? So that's the difference, and I think that's what really helped us build this logistics model where cost is good, retention is super strong, and you don't have to spend so much money to bring a customer back. Yes, what Muntaqa was saying, you need to offer discounts and deals and etc. So yes, definitely we want to be one of the first people to reach that stage, and we're aiming towards that, and we see very healthy numbers going on. And I think once again, because we're groceries, people still need, so people still want to spend money, like I said, just on cheaper brands. So we have to keep on innovating, we have to keep on making changes, make sure we have the right assortment, the right pricing, and the right margins. So the right mix is super, super important for us.
Quick question, what is your average basket size? It's not confidential. Who here wants to take a guess before he answers the question? What is the average basket size for Krave Mart? Come on, let me hear you guys in the audience. Don't all talk at the same time. Can we get a microphone in the audience? Yes, we have one. Four what? 3. 5. 3. 700. Huh? 1,500. Rupees or SKUs? SKU. Yes, going once, going twice. Okay. Answer is? No.
So about 14 SKUs in a basket. Yeah. So over time, initially, when we started, we were looking at much lower basket sizes. And the items per basket, that's the most important metrics we look at, was much lower. So obviously, with time, we increased our assortment, almost doubled it over the last, let's say, 15 to 16 months. And that's where we've seen people spending more items. I think the important part here is with inflation and how we look at things is that with inflation, I mean, if you're buying a Pepsi and you're buying it 100 and it changes to 130, doesn't mean you grew 30%. You should actually be selling 2 Pepsis to ensure that you're actually selling more items. So this GMV increase or whatever the top line should be excluding inflation, which is why the items per basket is super important for us.
Okay,
Exactly.
foodpanda, same question.
Actually, it's very similar
Okay.
because it's the same sort of segment that both of us are targeting. That's where we are right now in terms of penetration. So it's roughly around a 2K basket size, where depending on the situation, it can vary between 10 to 18 SKUs per basket. But the good thing is that this has 2x'd in the past 18 months or so. So that helps bring economies of scale. But the reason why people are also opting for a higher basket is because there's a delivery fees attached to it. So people don't want to spend 100, 150, 90, whatever the delivery fees would be on multiple orders. So they want one. But on the flip side, the good thing is the assortment has become better. So now you only go to one Panda Mart or one Krave Mart or one shop on our platform, and you get everything from there as opposed to multiple orders.
Fantastic. We're all out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the FMCG group. Let's pose for a photo, please.